Happy Friday, everyone. John Lorden here. I know many of you are probably saying, John, where's my Brainscratch? Well, we're going to do things a little different this week. I hit a little snag on the main episode, so we're going to do a Brainscratch Searchlight update today. We're also going to still review comments from last week's episode of Brainscratch, so I just wanted to be sure to get you guys a video for today, and we've got a few updates that are pretty important in terms of missing persons cases that I want to get out there as well. But I also do want to talk to you just about the whole process behind getting an episode of Brainscratch together and what happens sometimes, and unfortunately it happened this week, is that I will get into the research process. I'll be several hours into research and I'll either come to a conclusion or I'll start seeing an answer to the mystery that is so strong that I don't feel authentic in presenting it to you guys as some type of open-ended mystery. And outside of that, with this particular case I was looking into, it involved mental health. I was basically finding so much information to support the conclusion that this is someone that had been suffering for a number of years and that their demise was most likely linked to that. Now, of course, I can't say with 100% certainty, but when I feel like it's 90% certain, that's a bit too much for me to present it to you guys as this open-ended mystery. It wouldn't have felt right to me to present it to you guys and say, okay, now we're going to consider all these other things when there's so much information to support that one particular conclusion. So it's really tough because this is a case that I had a researcher working on as well. Like I said, numerous hours that I've put into it. And eventually I just hit this feeling of who is this video going to help? If I put out this video, who is it actually going to help here? I don't think it's going to help the family because it's going to re-raise all this pain for them. The mystery in it, like I said, I don't think that there was really too much of a mystery to be solved there. I don't think there are tips to elicit out there to actually help with this particular case. It just really did not feel authentic to me. And I wouldn't do that. You know, I'm not going to potentially put something out there that might be harmful to a family just because I need to get a video out on a Friday. It didn't make sense to me. Now, I have this happen actually pretty regularly. I would say that at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, I will start looking into a particular case. I'll get to a point where in the research, something just goes wrong with it. Either kind of like this one, I feel like there's a strong conclusion and it really isn't that open of a mystery. Sometimes the research just peters out and there's just not enough good detail to present to you guys. But typically what I'm able to do in most of those cases is I switch gears. I've got such a long list of suggested topics, thanks to each of you out there, that I will just look through that list. I'll pick another case and I'll put it together. Unfortunately, this week I need to take a couple days off, and the time that I had allocated for getting this research done in this particular episode out, it's just gone. There's just not enough time for me to switch gears. I literally tried earlier today to soak my brain into another case, and the case was just too big. And I'm not going to do that either. I'm not going to, get a real light version of understanding and then present that to you guys and say, hey, it's a Brainscratch. Happy Friday. See you next week. I think you guys know me better than that. It's just not what I'm going to do. So that is what happened with this week's Brainscratch. But if you do want to spend more time with me, please keep in mind, tomorrow is the release of Crime After Crime, and that particular episode runs almost an hour long. So if you didn't get enough John this week, tomorrow be sure to look for Crime After Crime and spend some time with me and Danielle Hallen looking into the most bizarre weapons. Really two pretty interesting stories that I think many of you out there are going to like. So with all that being said, let's talk about today's Searchlight updates. Now, the first one is Jake Wilson. There was a press conference held on Wednesday. We've got details that we're going to go into on the Jake Wilson case. Many of you remember I did an update on this not too long ago. His body was actually found in Wolf Creek. Well, a body was found, and that's part of the announcement today as well. But before we get to Jake's story, we're going to start with Jacob Caldwell, another case that I covered. You might remember this is a young man from Ohio. He witnessed his father being shot, and then he disappeared. And that happened just about a year ago, this month, actually. It was a year ago in August. So what has happened with that case? Here at WDSU, Jacob Caldwell, Ohio boy missing since witnessing father's 2017 slaying, found safe. I love saying those words. I wish it would happen more often in these cases. Unfortunately, it doesn't always go that way. But let's learn more about where Jacob was found and the conditions around that. And maybe there is a little brain scratch in this because there's something very odd happening around all this as well that we're going to touch on. Sugar Creek Township Police had been working with the FBI in an effort to locate the teen. Police received a call Monday from a female who said she had information about where to locate the boy. The tip led investigators to search a Miami Township home where Jacob was discovered. Now, Miami Township is actually about 40 miles away from Sugar Creek Township. 4 adults were inside, and we found Jacob in the basement. That appeared to be his primary area of sleeping, Sugar Creek Township Police Chief Michael Brown said. The 4 adults found inside the home are associates of Jacob's mother, Tawny Caldwell, who is in jail facing a potential murder charge in relation to Robert Caldwell's death. So in the original episode, this is an aspect that I spoke about. I thought that there was some likelihood that he might have gone off with either some friends or family on his mother's side. And it does appear that's the case. But these specifically are friends. Apparently, there's no relation. While Jacob did not appear to be held against his will, he was apparently extremely isolated while missing. We're going to hear some more details on that. It was our understanding that he was not outside much. He's gone a year without school. He's gone a year without socializing with friends, Brown said. There was no evidence of him being secured or locked in. I think he could have roamed throughout the house if he wished. Now, I'm a little concerned about that statement, particularly with the twist in the story, but just keep that in mind as we roll forward here. Over at people.com, we get some more detail about what it was like when they found him. Brown said he had long hair, having not had a haircut in a year, and added Jacob didn't attend school or have social interaction with anyone his age since he went missing. Brown said Jacob spent the year watching TV and playing video games. Kind of curious about that. I'm just wondering if in terms of him playing games, if he was an online gamer, and if he was he using the same gamer tag? Could they have tried to trace him down that way? Or were the people smart enough that he was living with that they didn't give him internet access? I don't know, but it's a bit of a strange situation because if you recall the original details of the case, he disappeared from a Walmart. Essentially, his father was killed. The grandparents got emergency custody, and he went to Walmart, and they had footage of him literally out front of the Walmart. And it looks like he was waiting for a ride, and he disappeared. So he does seem to be participating in this disappearance in some way. But keep in mind, this is a 15-year-old kid, and I don't know what types of pressures might have been put on him by friends or by family. There's a lot to consider, in particular because of his age when it comes to that. And that's why my mind is kind of blown at this twist that I keep teasing you guys about. So let's get to it. Jacob is now being held in a juvenile detention center on a previous warrant issued after he ran away from the home he shared with his father and stepmother. He's being held in juvenile detention? Yeah, and there's more details here. Moving over to news3lv.com. Officers say Caldwell is facing an unruly juvenile charge because he wasn't held against his will. 6 people, including Jacob's mother, are facing charges in his father's murder. Prosecutors are working to determine what charges to file against the 4 people in the house. What is going on with this here? It is really, really strange to me. We're talking about a young man that has gone through something extremely traumatic, seeing his father be killed. And we're kind of expecting that he should have, ran away from the basement because they didn't have a lock on the door. I don't know. So I wanted to learn more about this unruly juvenile charge. So let's check it out. This is from codes.ohio.gov. Unruly child defined. As used in this chapter, unruly child includes any of the following. A, Any child who does not submit to the reasonable control of the child's parents, teachers, guardian, or custodian by reason of being wayward or habitually disobedient. So, talking about the situation where his grandparents are awarded emergency custody, he's supposed to be staying with them. He decides not to. He sets up this getaway somehow where he runs away from Walmart and he goes off with these other people. I understand that. B, any child who is an habitual truant from school. Once again, we know that he didn't go to school for a year, so he fits into that as well. C and D really don't seem to fit too much, but it doesn't matter because we've got two of these conditions that already seem to suit it. So what does this mean? I don't know if they're just holding him on this charge because they are trying to keep him contained to a particular location while they're trying to figure out what to do in terms of, I don't know if there's charges coming for the 4 people that were hiding him. I would kind of assume that there is in some way. So I really would not expect this charge to hold up. I wouldn't expect that he's really going to be held accountable for this aspect. It boggles my mind because we have no idea what was said to this young man. They could have threatened his life. They could have threatened his grandparents' life. They could have said, hey, if you don't come here, if you don't, come with us, we're going to harm someone that you love. We're going to harm you. We're going to find some way to ruin your life. This is a 15-year-old. I don't think it would be really all that hard to try to intimidate him in some way, particularly, and this is the part I just can't let go with this story. This kid watched his father get gunned down. So tell me that anyone that isn't part of that situation or anyone that he would even associate with being part of that situation, which, got the kid's mom's involved and the mom's friends, and he winds up with some of the mom's friends. Wouldn't you have some type of innate fear about that circle of people, just knowing that it was a friend of your mom's after seeing what another friend of your mom did to your father? So I'd be really, really surprised if any of this really comes to actual charges. I think that this is just the holding pattern that they're in right now to be sure to keep him in custody while they're sorting out what's going to happen with these other people, and possibly to make sure that there aren't other people out there that are going to come along and do the same thing. We don't know how big this circle of friends is. We don't know if this 4 is the only 4 that would do something like this. I mean, it's 4 people that held him in that, or maybe not held him, but at least provided for him, kept him in that home for a year. So what else are they possibly able to do? How big is that network? We really don't know. I'm surprised there's so many people that are involved in this shooting in the first place. This sounds much more than just mother was upset that father won custody of the children. Mother talks ex-boyfriend into doing something weird. I mean, we've got 6 people already tied up with charges. We've got 4 more that were hiding this child. There's a lot going on to this case that I think we still have to see. But thankfully, we know that Jacob is alive. He has been found safe. He is currently in custody. Maybe that's the best place for him. I don't know if they're going to have to do some type of, counseling or try to reacclimate him to his grandparents or try to figure out why he ran away from that situation in the first place. I think there's a lot of things that have to be worked out with this case still. But thankfully, it seems like we're on the road to working those things out. So can't really complain about that. And just as a follow-up to the Searchlight update we did on the Jake Wilson case, there was a press conference that was held on Wednesday of this week, and they have announced that the remains are indeed him. So I did an update because it was kind of assumed that it was him. I just wanted to touch base with all of you and let you know that they now do have confirmation. We learn a few other things on top of that as well, but let's take a look at an article here at WhoTV.com. Authorities confirm body found in Wolf Creek is Jake Wilson. Kayakers found the remains in a rural part of Wolf Creek. Officials are not releasing the exact location the remains were found, but say it is an area they had previously searched. Officials say a recent decrease in creek levels aided the search. Over at DesMoinesRegister.com. During a news conference, LaPorte City Police Chief Chris Brecher said that the cause of death had not been determined. that was just something I was wondering about. And we also don't really know how many or how much of Jake has been found. The way that they were talking about it in the press conference, it sounds like they are still in an effort to try to locate more of him, but they would not go into detail in terms of what has been found. A reporter even specifically asked, because they made a comment about how many bones are in the body, and the reporter asked, well, how much of him has been found? And they would not make a clear statement about that. I think they were basically making the statement because they know that the community is likely to come across that area, that some people are going to want to do recreation around that area, and they might actually run into some evidence still pertaining to this case. The authorities were basically saying, we're still looking, and if people have information, please get it to us. So Black Hawk County Sheriff Tony Thompson has said the area where the remains were found was combed by crews up to 30 times before. And a reporter asked about that, and he kind of made a clarification. He said it had to be somewhere between 17 to 30 times, and he was talking about where you had search and rescue volunteers that were literally linking arms and wading through the water, just going step by step. And basically, one of those areas that had been searched several times in that way is ultimately where they did wind up finding Jake. So on top of all that, a Servants of Remembrance is scheduled to be held at 2 p.m. Sunday, October 7th, 2018 at the Union High School Gymnasium, 200 Adams Street, LaPorte City. This is a full obituary. I'll have a link down below, but I did just want to share with you this little section of it. Jake was an avid nature lover. His favorite hobbies were exploring nature, fishing, and collecting all kinds of treasures like antlers, empty shells, and other things a teenage boy would collect when being outdoors. And there was something really sweet that they said in the press conference also, that Jake's legacy is that he helped bring that community together in a very unique way. So many people that helped with the search. And it's sad. It's sad that that's how we have to remember him, but it is kind of a beautiful way to remember him. That, people that might have been living in the same area for years and never got to know each other now met because of their interest in trying to help find Jake. And I think that's a pretty good legacy. There was definitely a tone in the way that the press conference was presented where I don't think the authorities are thinking that there is any potential for foul play here. I think that they are figuring this was a very unfortunate accident that occurred. But if anything around that changes, I will certainly keep you guys updated. But as of right now, I'm not getting even the slightest hint that they think that something strange has gone on here, even though they don't really have a clear cause of death. It's one of those cases. It looks like an accident, smells like an accident. They're going to treat it like an accident unless they find something else. And to date, I'm not seeing any signs that that's happening here. So just wanted to share that with you guys. Before we continue to the comment review from last week's Brainscratch, I need to thank several new patrons, starting with Patricia Woolard, KJ, and Alicia Pitcher. Thank each and every one of you for supporting the channel, keeping me here doing what I love doing. I really appreciate it. If you want to also support the channel, head over to www.lordenarts.com. You can make PayPal donations. You can sign up for Patreon. You can buy some Lorden Arts merch, all at lordenarts.com. So last week's case was part 4 of my coverage on the Alissa Turney case, which I started over 3 years ago. That's the case where the father picks up a daughter early from her last day of school. I should say stepdaughter specifically. Supposedly, she runs away later that day. Her sister Sarah has been on a mission ever since and isn't giving up anytime soon. And of course, Sarah was awesome enough to come on the channel, do an interview, and then also really heavily participate in the comments and ongoing discussion around that. So thank you so much for that, Sarah. And looking at today's comments, I'm seeing a lot of old school brain scratchers in here. It's almost like a little reunion we got going on, starting with Babble Froggy. Sarah, you are such a strong woman and a great sister. I loved the trampoline story. I would love to see you get resolution for this case. And we can see Sarah thanked Babble Froggy. I also loved the trampoline story. I just liked having more insight into what type of person Alissa is. And I think we got that also from the footage. Despite the fact that the footage was kind of disturbing, we really got a good dose of the fact that Alissa really had some backbone, really had some spunk and spirit, and maybe was also doing something very smart in terms of recognizing that her much younger sister had the camera rolling, and almost like a cry for help, she decided to really kind of step up and say some pretty direct words about what she thought about her father there. So it's interesting because I think that strength and that kind of spunkiness that we hear about through Sarah about Alissa, I think Sarah is showing a bit of that as well in terms of just her amazing drive and perseverance when it comes to this case. It's just, I can't believe it's been going on as long as it has. And Sarah is just, she's not letting go. She's going to keep working at it. It's amazing to me. And we move on to another old school brain scratcher, Cyanide 77. God, that video says it all. Sarah has turned out really well considering what she's been through and the mind-twisting confusion. You're completely right about the conspiracy being fiction. That's one of the things that frustrates me the most. And I know some of you were like, hey, John, we've listened to the interview. We really wish that you could have interviewed him. Man, I don't know if I would have had the patience to sit through what Ottavia did with that interview, but I do wish that I could ask him about that, because that's when I look at all this and I listen to all the stories, the evidence, air quotes, that's been laid out is trying to tell us the story that Alissa ran away from home. And if we assume that Michael planted that evidence, okay, that's one way that he's gone with this. But then he's got that whole conspiracy theory story that he's also been very forward about. And those things cannot mash up. I don't see any way that those line up unless you build into the conspiracy that these guys from the union knew that she was going to be home early that day, knew that Michael was going to leave to go shopping, waited outside until he did, went into the house, had her write this letter, emptied her bag for some reason, took her bag but didn't take any of her things, left her cell phone behind. It doesn't work. The conspiracy story is one, I don't want to say truth, but if you are considering this from Michael's perspective, the conspiracy theory story is one line and her running away is another one. And those things, they cannot run parallel. They just run right into each other. One of those things is blatantly false. It has to be. So if that is the case, then we know either he is completely lying about this whole conspiracy thing, or possibly we have to consider that he has nothing to do with planting the evidence. But then, like I said, we've got this really wacky thing in terms of the conspiracy theory where somehow these guys that took her planted the evidence. And I don't know. I don't know if I can buy it. It's way too fantastic. And the conspiracy theory story is already kind of pushing it out there. The interesting thing that I remember from the original coverage I did was that one of the people that he says he killed, they actually found a social security card for, if I recall correctly, in Michael's safe. However, when you look up the information that's tied to that social security card, it's for a guy that died a completely different way. I think that Michael might have been looking into changing his identity, and I think that's why he had the social security card. Even that situation, once again, you get into these fantastical things. You get in a shootout with two guys, you kill one of those guys, then what happens? The other guy drives off and you decide you're going to go up to the dead body and you're going to take the guy's social security card. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I believe that social social card might have been a sign that Michael was going to conduct some type of identity theft, or try to hide, try to get away. And maybe it's just a plan that never came to fruition. I'm really not sure. Another long-term friend of the channel, Christy Groves. Thank you so much for all you're doing to find your sister, Sarah. Many of us are so disturbed by this. I don't know how to get your father to confess if he won't even confess to his beloved daughter, you. I don't know what can be done. I know what I would do, but it would be illegal. There is just so much territory to cover as far as land to find her. If your father is watching this and reading the comments, please confess. Please just let us find Alissa's remains so we can lie her to rest. Please do this for your daughter, Sarah. Not only has she lost Alissa, she lost you. Every girl needs their father. That aspect to this case just really, really hurts me, to think that someone you love and trust and someone as important to you as your father could be involved in harming one of your family members. It breaks my heart, and it's why I'll never leave this case either. I'm right there with Sarah. I'm just waiting for more developments, and I'm waiting and waiting for that day when we can turn this into a case cracked. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm on Team Sarah all the way, let's just say. Penelope Bowden says, the signature thing is a good point, John. And if you compare a known signature to that one, you can see the differences, in my very humble opinion. I even wonder, did Alissa deliberately sign her name slightly differently as a signal to her sister that things were badly wrong? I don't know, just airing thoughts. Thanks, John. Penelope, I obviously agree with you. I think you make a really good point. Of the analysis where I was worried about how the lines seem to start really slipping around on that last sentence, her signature is just, it's whacked. It's like it's completely broken in half. And the front half, that A to me doesn't match anything else that I've seen in terms of her writing samples. Now, I haven't seen a whole lot, but it really stands out to me that A does not look like any of the... She had this flourish to her A's, maybe because it's the first letter of her name. But if you look in the rest of the sample, you'll see that she took time to always draw this tail that kind of comes off the A. There was just, and that's when she's even writing a letter where it's emotionally charged. She's basically lashing out at her father and her sister a little bit and saying, I'm going to leave. But she still took time, and she still had that steady hand for those perfect lines in all of those top sentences. To see that signature, the way that it comes off, I don't know. To your point, maybe she was trying to warn whoever would see that letter that something was seriously wrong here. The signature is completely broken. Even if you don't believe my analysis of the last sentence, the signature, when compared to the known signatures that we showed of her as well, it's not even close. It looks like someone's trying to fake it to me. But once again, I'm not an expert. And Penelope, I know that you were also saying it's in your humble opinion. I would love for other experts to look at that and to really give us better analysis on it. Hopefully that'll happen someday. Another good old friend of the channel, Scott Fox. Sarah Turney, do you have any areas marked out to search that you feel might be a place she might be? Sarah actually responded, there is one that I would absolutely like to use ground penetrating radar on, and I'm still narrowing down the patch of desert I think would be the most likely. There's just a lot of desert. And then Scott was cool enough that he actually talked about where she could rent ground penetrating radars. He sent her several links. Really, really cool, Scott. Thank you so much for taking the extra steps there, do a little research and send them her way. I think that's really, really nice of you. Kiss Samina. You know what makes no sense? If she planned on going to live with her aunt, why leave your phone? You already told your stepdad and sister you're going to live in California. This makes no sense. I think it could be that they had a fight. She told him, I will leave and stay with my aunt in California, and he didn't want that. Something happens. He killed her. But before the killing, he forces her to write the letter. Maybe the last sentence is different because she tried to tell us something without him knowing. You make a very, very good point about the phone. You're going to steal $300 from your dad, but then you're going to worry about leaving the cell phone. Even if it was on his plan, you're going to leave the cell phone behind. Why? Take the phone. Even if he kicks you off the plan, so what? You've got a phone. You can go get another plan and get it kicked on there. What about photos that you've taken on that phone? Text messages, things that you just want to save just so you could look back at them at some point in the future. Leaving the phone behind when you're already saying in the letter, hey, Dad, I stole $300 from you. It's once again incongruent. It just does not line up. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Thank you so much for raising that point. And finally, Owned by a Gray. People nowadays want to put much emphasis on DNA and overt truth. They often forget that sometimes circumstantial and accumulative evidence can be incredibly profound and go more toward the truth than any fingerprint could. Owned by a Gray, very good point. We have seen occasionally cases where there is no body and circumstantial evidence is used, and sometimes those cases are won. And because of all that, there is actually a petition that you can sign. Sarah didn't mention this in the interview, but I did see it later and I added it to the description box of that video. But here I can tell you guys all about it. You can go to the link in the description box below at thepetitionsite.com. And the petition is to demand that Michael Turney go to trial for the death of Alissa Turney. And I know one of the arguments around that is going to be, the double jeopardy argument, that basically if they try to take him to trial and they wind up losing, they're not going to be able to try him again later. Well, how old is this guy now? I mean, are we going to take our chance at this or not? That's really where I'm at with that question. I think there's a lot of extremely compelling information when it comes to this case. I think it would be kind of easy to show that Michael is not always upfront. Like I said, we've got two very different conflicting stories that pretty much have come from his mouth. Impeaching him certainly wouldn't be a problem. I'd be really surprised if his lawyer would even let him take the stand. I don't know. I think that there could be a good chance at that, and that's why I personally signed the petition. And if you are moved to do so also, please check out the description box below where I'll have that link. I would just go for it. If they're ever going to try it, I think now's the time. What are they waiting for? Even if they find Alissa's remains, what's going to be there that's going to help them with this case? At the most, you're going to find a location. Maybe you're going to be able to say, yeah, Michael knew about this location. But are you expecting to find, I've looked into enough cases to know that when a body has been out in an area for this long, sometimes even determining the cause of death is extremely difficult. So I don't know what they would necessarily be waiting for in terms of trying this case. I think they should give it a shot while he's still alive, just to give a chance at this family to make him answer and be held accountable. But that's just where I'm at with it. What do you guys think? Let's chat about it in the comments below. Once again, my apologies. I really wanted to have a brain scratch for you guys this week. It just wasn't the right case, and unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to get a second one going, but I'll be sure to nail a good case for you guys next week as well. And just know that I would never present a case to you guys that I didn't feel great about. And I didn't feel like we could help in some way. And that's kind of where I wound up with that one. So I hope you guys will understand that. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you back here on Monday. Oh, that's right, with the special live Q&A on the Lord and Arts channel happening at 11 a.m. Central Time. Be sure to set a reminder. The appointment's already in YouTube, so you can go find it on the channel, click the set reminder, and that way it'll let you know when it's starting. Looking forward to hanging out with you guys and answering some of your questions. Take care, and I hope to see you there.